Hello, class. This is currently about take 8. I am here to talk about the satanic panic that was going on in the 1980s, 90s, even now. What I'm referring to is actually when people would gather in people's basements, and that's when they would play a card game called Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering is a pretty technical game that just involves 2 to 4, preferably, players where you will just play, you'll cast spells, play creatures, anything to defeat your opponent. So I wanted to talk about how our class definitions of culture and intercultural communication applies to Magic the Gathering and how I fit in that. So I would put myself for the Magic community. There's places called LGSs or like local game store, local card shops. So this is like Olympia Card and Comics, Press D, Paradox. That's just to name a couple in the area. But so when I go, I'll go with my cousin, and typically how this works is we sit down at a store, and then people will be wandering. My social anxiety won't let me ask people to play with me. I will just wait until someone asks me to play with them, or if my cousin will grab a couple people, and then we'll form what's known as a pod. A pod is just a group of players playing, but preferably we want to have a 4-person pod. That's the dream number. 3 is a little bit too little, 5 is too much, and will take 3 hours to play one game, and I'm not there for that. But so that's how I would put us as a culture. There's plenty of ways where we interact, but now I want to talk about how we communicate with other cultures, so intercultural communication. So the cultures that I would bring up would be the sister cultures of Magic. So this would be your Yu-Gi-Oh!, this would be Pokemon. So these are typically Pokemon's typically like kids, teens, and then people will collect for the nostalgia as an adult. You have heard of scalpers. That's also part of the culture of Magic. It's just people will, once a new set comes out, or if it's like very limited, they will buy up all the stock and then they will sell it at ridiculous prices that even more ridiculous people buy at because they're just desperate for those cards. One Magic set was like the SpongeBob set, and I know that one sold out. Like, it was ridiculous. But another way, so those are the card cultures. But there's also tabletop games. So D&D and Warhammer, they have what is called dice. If you don't know what a dice is, this is a D20. It has 20 sides. I got into collecting gigantic D20s because I just think they're quirky. What can I say? I don't really meet too many people that have bigger dies. I have 3 sides of baseballs. I want to get a bowling ball one. I think that'd be cool. But my point is, Magic didn't have dice. But I will use, because of how I was influenced from D&D, is I will want to use dice and represent them because I want to show them off to other Magic people because they've also probably might be into D&D. It's just, if you're into those hobbies, they're somewhat similar, you're more likely to be into them. Let me check my notes. But yeah, so that's a prime example of intercultural communication between D&D and Magic. But I did want to talk about how there is a D&D set for Magic. So a set is just it's a name that depicts where certain Magic cards come from. So there were Magic cards introduced for a D&D set that now have dice associated with them, and that wasn't a thing. That was in about 2020. So that's on a broader spectrum intercultural communication as well, because of how popular D&D was. They wanted to try to make money off of it, because that's what Wizards of the Coast is all about. Which is another thing of our culture. We don't like Hasbro too much. We all know that they want money, and it's just ridiculous for what they do. But I won't get too into that. So now to briefly talk over the history of Magic the Gathering. So the game was invented in I didn't write down the date, but it was 1980, 1978, around there, where Richard Garfield was experimenting with multiple board games. It was originally called like Magic 5. He was working on a couple others, and like Robo something, and it just wasn't really coming off too good. That's when he met with Wizards of the Coast, who is now owned by Hasbro. Back then, they were a small company that would publish some cards, and they weren't wildly successful as they are today. But Richard Garfield, his goal was to make a game that could be played with minimal equipment, because that was just a problem with board games. Sometimes you need a whole lot of fancy building kind of things to play the board games. But for Magic, you just need the cards. So that was some appeal to it, and it was a little bit more complicated than some of the other games around the time. So like Yu-Gi-Oh, for instance, it's a little simple. Pokemon's a little simple. But Magic kind of hits for the niche that wants a more technical, it's just more complex game. So now the true artifact that I wanted to show is a card that I was given by my wife. His name is Karn. I'll hold that up for just a second longer. Okay. So what Karn's all about is he's a golem for lore purposes. He creates technology. He really empowers technology. He can make it so other people can't use technology. That's what he's all about, in layman's terms, at least. I like him a lot just because he has a pretty meaningful impact. If he can do his little special thing, he doesn't do it too often, but when he does, it feels really cool. Other people don't like it when you get it off, but because he just restarts the game and then you'll have more starting advantage, and that's the whole reason why he's pretty good. So in order to like use this, for me to demonstrate it completely, so there's a 7 up here. That just means that's the amount of resources you need to play him. And once you play him, he has abilities like target player exiles a card from his or her hand. That just means they throw away a card. It's never coming back unless if they have an effect that can bring it back, but that's not too common for exiling. And then he can exile a target anything. So any creature that someone has on the field, he can just get rid of it, or even the things that create the resources that are called lands, he can exile those too, which is what makes him pretty good. And then his final ability is restarting the game, and then everything he's exiled, I would be able to start with it. So it's a pretty big advantage. So now I would like to discuss the language of my culture. So some quick jargon. There's one that says, the biggest, it's a meme that goes around, is reading the card explains the card. So I will hold this up. Text is backwards, but if you hold up a mirror, you can try to read it. And as someone who's never played Magic, I can guarantee that you have, well, maybe you can figure out what it does, but sometimes the text can be a little bit more confusing, and you don't know what a permanent is, even though I just explained it to you. You've already forgotten. So reading the card doesn't necessarily explain the card. So that's one piece of jargon. Another one, so I guess to go into the colors of Magic. So this is colorless. It doesn't have any color. Generally, you can do whatever you want in colorless, except it's a little bit nerfed or weakened because it's more expensive. However, white is one of the colors. It's for protection. Generally, green, it's all about growth. Red is very bursty and reckless. Blue, there's a negative stigma to blue players because they have a thing called a counterspell. And that just means that, like, if I wanted to play my fancy big card, they can counter it, and then I get nothing. It just goes to the graveyard, dies, never comes back. And it makes me really sad. So when people, all they do is counterspell, 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 it just makes you upset. Everyone gets mad. That's a general consensus in the Magic community. As soon as we see a blue player, we're just like, ugh. And then the last color is black. Black is all about necromancy or bringing things back from the graveyard to play, or they kill what you have, and then they take what you have. That's generally what black does. So, what do I hope or desire that my artifact communicates to other cultures? I mean, at the end of the day, the reason why I like this card a lot is because it looks pretty. So I'm a little bit of a collector. I don't collect too much, but for the couple of cards that I do have, they mean a little bit to me just because my wife bought me a box, which is rare for us, and it's just a nice, it's pretty cardboard. There was one cardboard, a little small tangent, but it's worth telling, where I pulled a card. It was a serialized card, and it was number 38 out of 500 of a chase card. A chase card is a card that's highly desirable. It's what people hope to get in the packs, and it's worth a lot of money, but I ended up selling that card for $1,000. That was really cool. Never have had that luck before, and I probably won't again. That was ridiculous. That was a Christmas gift. It was so cool to have pulled that. I ran around screaming. It was nuts. I guess one kind of teetering back to... well, I just wanted to mention that another serial card was the One Ring. It was 1 of 1. And if you happen to know Post Malone, he bought it for about over $2 million. It's crazy. But I guess so the reason why I bring that up is because I wanted to demystify any stereotypes about my respective culture. So Magic the Gathering, a common stereotype is being a nerd, or like you're not cool. But I mean, Post Malone plays. I'm not hugely into Post Malone, but I mean, he's cool by other people's standards. And man spent $2 million on a card. Like, that's crazy. That's really crazy. I think it broke records as the most expensive card ever bought, like in an auction type setting. Another stereotype is that there's, so like nerd, so I already got the nerd one, but that Magic players don't use deodorant, which I feel like I'm an outlier for. I put deodorant on about 2, maybe even 3 times a day. I might shower twice a day because I really care about my hygiene. I don't want to smell bad. It just rubs me the wrong way, and it just really bothers me. I'm really self-conscious about it, so I don't fit that stereotype. Another stereotype is that like we lack muscle because we're nerds, so we're just super small. I'm not like tiny, but the people that want to say that break the stereotype are a lot of, I play with my military friends. There's a decent amount of them who are really into Magic, and I just feel like that breaks the stereotype right there. Also with the whole nerd. Generally, there is nerds in the military, but now I'm going to give the stereotype that they're strong men, and that's who I was playing with. So you'll just have to believe me. But that is the final topic that I did want to cover. So at this point, are there any questions? I look forward to anything that y'all happen, if you decide to watch my video and sit through me talking about Magic for 14 minutes. I'm sure you'll have something. Or maybe you just sat through it bored. At least Nick will watch this. Okay. Can't wait to see y'all tomorrow. Thanks for watching.